Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Welcome. Great to have you with us on this Thursday on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Brought to you by the great people at Sunbury Motors. 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia. Routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, great pre-owned inventory, great deals. Talk to the sales staff. They'll work great deals for you. And a fabulous service department, all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf and online at sunburymotors.com. John Huffnagel, Brian Gelsheiser, Jair Brown. Like, okay, what does that mean? They all either wore or currently now wear 16 days to the start of Penn State football. Last night, after practice, James Franklin had an opportunity to talk with the media, starting last night with Ben Jones of StateCollege.com.
How's it going, James?
Hey, Ben. How are you, buddy?
Good. It feels weird not to be outside Lash. I almost just drove over to just do it on my laptop from out there. But
yeah, it is strange. There's no doubt about it. But I appreciate everybody getting on.
I want to take you back a few years to 2012 when you were at Vanderbilt. You opened against South Carolina when South Carolina was ranked 8th and then went to Northwestern. And I'm curious, what are the challenges of the lead up to a year when maybe you don't have the sort of traditional, the few weeks to kind of ease yourself into things? Obviously, you take non-conference seriously, but there's a big difference between having those games and maybe jumping right into it. What are sort of the challenges when you know that's what you're facing?
Yeah, it's different. There's going to be a lot of things that are different, and we haven't traditionally scheduled that way, not only since I've been here, but before I got here. Typically some out-of-conference games to start the season. So it is very different. And I think there's a lot of things, Ben, that are different. It's opening with a conference opponent right from week one. Very different than the NFL, where you typically would get preseason games. Very different than college, where you would typically, not all the time, but typically get out of conference games. And then obviously we also have the stadium, issue. Obviously we all know Beaver Stadium with no one in there is very different, and not just for the visiting team, coming, also for what we're used to. So, we're going to start practicing like that. We're going to start practicing in Beaver Stadium a little bit more. We're going to start turning the music off, where usually we spend so much time trying to get prepared for crowd noise and things like that. These are all things that, we're just going to have to get used to, kind of the new normal, Ben.
Arthur Project?
Don Clifford that have shown you that he's ready to take that next step as a quarterback?
I've kind of given this answer before where, I don't necessarily felt like some quarterbacks have a glaring weakness in one area, and you say this is the obvious area that we need to get better in. And I think for Sean, it's just continuing to grow in his total development a little bit better, really in each area. And I think that naturally comes with age and maturity and experience. And I think obviously him and Coach Shiraka have clicked, so that helps. It's also the rapport with the wide receivers and the tight ends. Obviously, that's going to be something that's very important. And that's a challenge, because with us not having a bunch of production returning at the wide receiver position, that typically would have been something that we would have really emphasized over the summer, with the throwing sessions and things like that. But just everything has been different. Not having spring ball, not having the traditional summer workouts, those were areas that we knew we needed to be ready for. So I think it's one expectation for week one. It's going to be a different expectation for week 4. But I think you're just going to see a more experienced, more seasoned guy that I think is a little bit more confident, a little bit more comfortable, even in an adjusted system.
Audrey Snyder.
Hey, James. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
You too, Audrey.
Going off, you just mentioned the wide receivers. We learned today that John Dunmore is withdrawn from Penn State. How long have you guys kind of been planning on operating without John? And is there any expectation or any possibility that he could potentially return at some point?
Yeah, we'll just take it one day at a time. I'm not sure, as you know, with things like this over 6 years, I'm not going to get into a whole lot of specifics and details. That's not fair to John and his family, and I can't predict what the future holds.
Andrew Porterview.
Hey James, thanks for doing this. With this off season and bringing in a lot of new coaches, obviously you haven't seen or been interacted with them the same way as in years past. But what have you seen from Coach Stubblefield in your interactions with him, and what type of energy do you think he'll bring to the coaching staff?
So your Wi-Fi is struggling a little bit. I think you asked about Coach Stubblefield and the wide receivers. Is that correct?
Yeah, Coach Stubblefield's energy and what do you think he'll bring to the program?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously he's an experienced wide receivers coach, and then he obviously has experience in the Big Ten. Obviously had a great playing career, and I think that helps. It really does. I think Coach Troutline's playing career has helped him, with our current offensive lineman, and I think it's the same thing with Coach Stubblefield. So now you can take your years of experience as a coach and couple that with your years' experience as a player, and then for him specifically in this league.
Head football coach James Franklin at his post-practice press conference last night. Yesterday was practice 13. So number 14 is coming up today. They're at the midway point, but there's going to be a point next week where they probably will start to taper and then start really bearing and getting set for game week, which will be Indiana in the opener. So we're 16 days away from that. But some point, probably early to mid next week, they'll make the turn from the, quote, training camp part, which has been obviously different this time, to the let's get ready for the opening game part. This will be a big weekend for them coming up, and it'll probably be a big weekend for them coming up because it'll be probably after this weekend where they start to look around and say, okay, at some point we need to start putting scout teams together. So after this weekend, they would probably start doing that. Maybe not right away next week, but I'd say by Wednesday next week, they'll probably get into some players going to scout team. Those are tough conversations. All these guys are right there thinking, hey, look, I got a shot to play. Now, maybe in this particular team with the veterans that they have, maybe not so much, but still those are tough conversations. All right, so that was James Franklin last night. We'll come back with more in a moment. Our high school football roundtable is coming up today. Believe it or not, week 5 of the high school football season is coming up. We'll do that at 3:35. And while it's week 5 for the high school football season in the Valley, here in State College, State High will finally get a chance to play its second game of the year and their first home game of the year coming up tomorrow night. Just thought I'd slip that in, but that's, it's been different here than it has been in other places. Looking forward to our high school football roundtable like we always do as we continue. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK. All right, great to have you with us on the show today. High school football roundtable coming up in just a few minutes. Week 5 of the high school season. I mentioned in the previous break that State High's playing at home this week. It's their only home game. The last 3 are all on the road. So that's what they have coming up. But week 5 coming up. And our usual cast will be in to preview their respective games. Lewisburg won last week, which is terrific. And we'll talk to Greg about that. and Selinsgrove can't score. I never thought in all the years that we would do these high school roundtables at Selinsgrove, I mean, obviously circumstances come into play, but but they can't score. That's that catches off guard. So, the Yankees did not win last night. What did I tell you? Well, Charlie Morton that's a tough matchup for the Yankees. I know he can be a little up and down. The Yankees may come back and win this thing. Right, that's fine. They may do that. All right. But the Yankees the one thing you can say about the Yankees, they have not been great about developing their own pitchers. They have not been great about it. And that is an issue. They paid a lot of money for Tanaka. They paid a lot of money for Cole. They traded for Paxton, who obviously is hurt. They acquired Chapman. To their credit, they were clever about it. But they have not done a good job of developing their own guys. This is not like the time, hey, you developed Andy Pettitte, you developed Ron Guidry, you developed Dave Righetti. They developed those guys. They don't have a lot of those guys here. Hitter-wise, they develop a lot of their own people. Gleyber Torres is fabulous. Aaron Judge, people like that. Brett Gardner, the old veteran, is I think Torres can be as well, and they've done a great job. Even though they had to acquire him, but Luke Voigt has turned out to be a good power hitter for them, a decent first baseman. He was being converted to first base here in State College anyway. But that is, but they don't develop pitchers in their organization. It's not as if they don't try, but they don't develop their own pitchers. They spend a lot of money going out and acquiring them. Cole, now I realize this year these guys aren't making these numbers, but Cole's $36 million a year. What they pay for Tanaka? $100 million? North of it. Great. But that's how they've gone about putting their staff together. But how much did they pay the Japanese team to acquire his rights? Didn't they have to do that too? I don't remember at all what the number was, so I'm not even going to pretend that I know. So it's a little more common. Well, look, it's not like the Red Sox didn't do that with Daisuke Matsuzaka. Now, Matsuzaka helped them win the 2007 World Series. In fact, he was the winning pitcher in Game 3 of the World Series in 2007. But in the end, in terms of the length of the contract and so forth, was he worth what they... No, of course not. Plus, they paid a lot of money for a guy named Rusney Castillo, and because of the luxury tax, Castillo has been a good player for them. They can't put him on the primary roster because he'll count against they'll have to pay the luxury tax. Okay. He's just been sitting. Rusney Castillo actually has an apartment in Boston. Now, this is when, of course, they had a minor league season. He had an apartment in Boston because his contract was like for 7 years, $72 million, whatever it is, some number like that. And he drive to Pawtucket every day. That's how he did it. Oh, well. Different story, different time. But that's, your team may survive. Yeah, well, that's what we're waiting to see with what they're going to do. The ratings are not great, by the way. But get this. Evidently, the Louisiana Tech BYU game last Friday night had more viewers than the NBA Finals. Wow. That's a big, big deal that the NBA Finals were beaten out. Now, I realize that there is a closet Louisiana Tech fan base out there that is massive. Okay, maybe not. BYU, maybe not. The college football game last Friday night between Louisiana Tech and BYU beat out the NBA Finals in the ratings. Wow. If I'm Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, I don't panic yet. But it better improve by the time they get to by the time they get to June. If it doesn't improve when they're playing the finals next July, when they really essentially have it to themselves, then they've got a problem. Tonight, the Penn State Coaches Show, Guy Godowski, first half hour. Second half hour, Terry Smith. We'll talk hockey and Penn State defensive backs. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. All that new inventory sitting there that has great deals. What about pre-owned inventory? Maybe that your budget, that's the direction you want to go in, or maybe you prefer it. That's fine. That's great. Well, they have great pre-owned inventory as well. Fabulous selection. Service department there for everything, from major repairs to routine maintenance. Routine maintenance, so important. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Time now for our high school roundtable. And with that, we're going to start with Zach Showers and Selinsgrove. Zach, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How about yourself, Steve?
I'm hanging in there. Zach, I know I said this to you last week, but it's almost stunning to be talking about a Selinsgrove team that can't score because over the years they have, quote, outscored a lot of people.
Yeah, it really is. This is it was back-to-back weeks with a shutout, and it's the first time that's happened actually since last year when they were shut out by Jersey Shore and Southern, and then they turned around and played Shikellamy the next week and scored 37 points. So I think Selinsgrove fans and Selinsgrove coaches are hoping for the same thing tomorrow night.
Amazing. Why? What's happened? Is it or is it the offensive line? I mean, what is it that's kept them? Is it field position? Is it bad breaks? So they get a drive going and then they stall? What's happened?
Well, it's been a combination. It seems like it's a different thing every week. The one consistent, the offensive line, yes, has really, really struggled. to pick up assignments, to move the ball with any level of consistency. And I think, some teams, you have teams, that are more prepared to kind of grind out drives, and you have teams that are able to make some explosive plays. And sometimes the ability to do one or the other can really bail you out if you're struggling. And unfortunately for Selinsgrove, they haven't really had any explosive plays since week 1 when Nate Schoen went down with an injury, and they just haven't been able to string together drives at all. Last week they were a little bit more committed to the running game, and when things came on late in the fourth quarter, when they were the game was out of reach, but Jersey Shore still had some of their starters in, they were able to move the ball a little bit, and I wouldn't call it necessarily a wear-down effect, but because they stuck with that, they were able to move the ball. But a couple weeks ago, it was not being able to take advantage of opportunities. And another thing, too, is the defense has had to be on the field so much, and when you have a lot of guys that are playing both ways, it makes it really difficult when they use so much energy on defense and then come to offense, and it's just tough to get going a little bit.
What would it mean to them, and I probably asked you this last week, what would it mean to them to get a score, to get in the end zone? What would that do just for the sideline?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. That's a huge factor tomorrow night. I know that can kind of be cliche about who gets up first and things, but with the way the offense has struggled, the defense has just been exerting so much effort to almost have to play perfect. And last week was the same thing. They held Jersey Shore scoreless. They forced a turnover. They played as hard as they did all year in the first quarter and a half of the game. But the fact that they weren't able to capitalize on those opportunities, I think tomorrow night to get a score would provide some confidence. It would also give the defense a little shot in the arm to know that, hey, we don't need to play 100% perfect here. We can just go out and do our thing.
What about the significance of the rivalry here?
Yeah, it's big. I think most times when you're sitting week 5 and you have two teams that are 1-3, it's not a real big game. And whenever you're playing Schick, I think Selinsgrove knows that they're going to get Shikellami's best shot, and I think Shikellamy knows that they're going to get Selinsgrove's best shot. And to have that, to be able to find maybe a positive and a launching point for the second half of the season, it's a big game. And I think with being able to get a few more fans back there tomorrow night, I think everybody's looking forward to a fun atmosphere, and I think what should be a pretty good game between two imperfect teams, but two teams that are really looking to get going the rest of the season.
Well, our broadcast team is perfect, so it's great to have everybody on board. Zach, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. It'll be on Eagle 107 tomorrow night. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve.
All right, let's transition to Greg Wetzel now. Greg, welcome. Great to have you with us. Coming off a win. So what really keyed Saturday night?
It was wonderful Saturday night. I think they want to play Saturday nights all the time now.
Believe.
It was a game, Steve, where Lewisburg won the turnover battle. They blocked a punt. They intercepted a pass. Got great field position in both cases. They were able to run the ball. They threw for close to 150 yards and 2 scores. It was just nice to see things click offensively. But that being said, they gave up 28 points, so they needed all those 35 points to win the game.
Well, you know what, though, Greg? The old cliche that we talk about, well, you got to win the turnover battle, you got to win special teams. Yeah. This is why.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you know, I don't know if I talked to you about this. I think I have in the past. But my broadcast partner, Justin Michaels, and myself, we always talk about, it doesn't matter what the score is, these kids play hard. And, they had to play hard for 4 quarters because Lewisburg scored with less than a minute to go in the game to go ahead. And the senior leadership just kind of took over, and they didn't want to lose that game, and the seniors came through at the end of the game.
And that makes a big difference. And that has to at least change the tone in practice this week. It just has to. You could talk all you want about, oh, no, our kids are pushing forward to it. But winning changes a lot of things.
Oh, it does, Steve. And, you know, usually on Tuesday nights when I go to practice and I talk to the coach, this week I told the coach, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to your players. And I got the four captains on the team. And they were still excited from the win on Saturday night. They had a good Tuesday practice, and they were still excited for that win on Saturday night.
All right. Defensively, giving up the 28, it makes it more exciting. It's a more exciting broadcast. No question about that. But you'd like to get a little better control of the game. So for them to play better defense, where does that have to come from? Is it a defensive cohesion issue, or is it a spot in the field issue?
It's really, they have played some wonderful tailbacks, Steve, all year. And I think every high school team can pretty much say that's one of their better athletes is going to be their tailback. And they have run up against four really good tailbacks. This Hunter Wolfe kid that played for Midwest is no exception. And what it is, it's missed tackles in the backfield, at the line of scrimmage. If they can make those tackles, they're putting this team, other teams in 2nd and 10, 3rd and long situations. And Lewisburg's pass defense is probably the strength of their team. And they haven't been able to do that this year. They've always been in short situations, 3rd and 2, 2nd and 4, things like that. So being able to stop the run really has to play an important part in their defense, team defense.
All right, so what about this week? There's certainly confidence going into it, but what do they have to do this week to get control of this one?
Well, number one, they have to play their best game of the year, bar none. They have to be, because Montoursville is probably the most well-balanced team that they'll see all year. I'm not saying they're the best team, but they'll be the most well-balanced team in terms of throwing the football and running the football. They have to win the turnover battle. And quite honestly, Steve, they have to hope Montoursville is looking past this game to whoever they may play next and not be as sharp as they've been this year, because if you look at comparative scores, this game shouldn't be close. But Lewisburg needs to play really well, control the ball, have these 12, 13-play drives that eat up the clock and keep the ball away from Montoursville.
Right, and that'll be important because Montoursville's balance makes you guess all night long.
All night long, and they have another great tailback. The tailback gained over 200 yards against Danville last week, and so Lewisburg knows they have a tough job. But again, it's high school, Steve. You don't know. You know, momentum plays such a huge part in a lot of these games, and Lewisburg can get some turnovers, an early score. You don't know what's going to happen, you know, and they have that win under the belt, a little confidence now.
Yep, you and I talk about that all the time. All the time.
That's for sure. Yep.
Greg,
that's for sure.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Tell him, Justin, we said hi. Appreciate you very much.
We'll do that. Okay, take care, Steve. Have a good one.
You too. On 100.9 The Valley. Dave Ritchie, the Chief, Shikellamy, Selinsgrove. I will actually lead off with this question that I ended with Zach Showers. Shikellamy, Selinsgrove. What do you think? What do you think the rivalry means?
It's always been probably the best rivalry in the Susquehanna Valley. The kids see each other all the time. There's a lot of Shikellamy, Northumberland, Sunbury people that now live in the Selinsgrove district, so it's not just the fact that you've got a neighboring school. You also have families that are involved, families whose dads and moms were Shikellamy grads, and now the kids are playing ball down there. So it's for bragging rights. It's I would say one of the biggest rivalries, probably bigger now than the Shamokin Mount Carmel rivalry. I would even go as far to say that.
Really? All right.
Yep,
so
it's a big one.
Selinsgrove, and I said this to Zach a couple of times, I never thought in doing this show that when we do the high school roundtable, we'd talk about Selinsgrove's inability to score. I never thought I'd talk about that, but we are.
I agree with you. I'm
surprised.
Shocked.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be surprised by this. So what does an early score in a game like this mean against a program that is struggling to score?
Well, I think I said last week that in the Milton game, Shikellamy scored first. And Milton struggled to score, and after that, Shikellamy pretty well dominated the second half. So I would think that the same thing would apply here. I think it's unfortunately, I didn't hear Zach's commentary, but he does such a fantastic job that I'm sure he mentioned the fact that they haven't scored in 8 quarters. So
yes,
Shikellamy could get on top like they did against Shamokin. I mean, I don't know if you know it, Steve, but they were up 13-0 in the first quarter. Shikellamy was up on Shamokin 13-0, and Shamokin came back. If Shikellamy could do that to Selinsgrove, and then hold on, all right, and not get beat on some big plays, it would mean an awful lot. I'm sure of that. Although there are teams that they just are resilient, and they've been taught to just keep fighting like Shamokin did. Henry Hanowski's kids never gave up, and they just did an excellent job of coming back and storming ahead. And I think Selinsgrove could do that too.
Yeah, I know it's 4 games in. I know what the record is. It's 1-3. But where are they better now than they were in early September?
Oh, defensive, and they just had 41 points scored against them. But against the run, the Braves have gotten better. They've, again, the injury problem. They lost their safety, and you have to get somebody back there to play that position. That means you're going to move maybe a corner around, or even an outside backer back in that position, and it takes a while to adjust. So defensive-wise, I thought they played solid against the run, and a couple times there were some blown assignments. A lot of people don't realize this, but they really didn't try to run the ball until the second half against Shamokin, and when they did, they were successful. They went from a spread formation back to the standard wing tee, and they ran the ball fairly well against Shamokin. So the other thing I like seeing is the fact that there are more people around the ball carrier on the tackle now than I've ever seen at Shikellamy for a long time. There's a lot of people going to the ball and helping out, and that goes a long way in stopping a team on 3 downs.
All right, so what is your opinion? What do they have to do to win this? I mean, there's a lot of emotion with this, but what do they need to do to win it?
Well, I think Coach Kaiser, with changing his offense, something more to think about. And if they could execute their spread offense and throw in their wing tee and control the football, that's a big key. Shamokin beat Selinsgrove by holding on to the football, and I think that's what the Braves have to do. They've got to, be able to offensively control the ball game that way. Defensively, they've got to get their passing defense straightened out. Not so much the rush, but the protection in the defensive backfield. I'm sure that Selinsgrove's going to test them on that. So, those are the 2 things that I think are important. Their kicking game has been solid, and the one thing that I am very, very proud of these kids is they're averaging only about 10 yards in penalties a game. That shows me, number one, concentration on listening to the count, concentration on watching the ball from the line of scrimmage when you're on defense, and not doing anything that's illegal as far as personal fouls. And the Braves last year had a lot of difficulty with that. This year, if you think about it, 10 yards per game, 40 yards in penalties over 4 games. I bet you there won't be any team that won't want that statistic.
Exactly. Agree with you. Dave, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time and your work very much.
Well, I hope one of these days we can talk about another win. So it could be this week because they're fired up, and I'm sure Selinsgrove's fired up. So it's always a fun game, and there's going to be a lot of media coverage there too.
Yeah, a lot of media coverage, and maybe more fans?
Yeah, the plan is Tim Ford, the athletic director. The plan was they were going to go to 1,200 people people at the game, and last I heard they were going to offer tickets to the juniors and seniors, and then what tickets they didn't want, they were going to offer to the sophomores and freshmen. And if I'm not mistaken, I think all the players got 4 tickets. So you're going to see more people in the stands this week.
That's great. All right,
yes,
Dave, thanks so much. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Steve. Have a good day.
You too. Dave Ritchie, the Chief, joining Kevin Herr on News Radio 1070 WKOK with the broadcast tomorrow night. Rivalries are fun. They're fun. Like the Tampa Bay Yankees rivalry. No? Well, it's because your people are consumed with hate. We'll come back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years. So, a lot coming up tomorrow night. Lewisburg on 100.9 The Valley. You have Montoursville. And Selinsgrove, Shikellamy. You want the play-by-play of what's going on, you'll listen to Eagle 107. You want the commentary of Dave Ritchie, you listen to News Radio 1070 WKOK. Wait a minute, did I phrase that right? That was awful. I win awards. So if you want to hear the Shikellamy broadcast, Kevin and the Chief will be on News Radio 1070 WKOK. If you want to hear the Shikellamy broadcast, it's on Eagle 107. And again, those broadcasts more important than ever. Reason that they're more important than ever is that they're going to limit it to what, as Dave said, 1,200 fans? No, if you're limiting it to 1,200 fans, that means that that's your outlet. Now, do you have a game tomorrow? Oh, there you go, everybody. Good. You got Matt calling the game. Very nice. So, do they group all of you in the same booth, or are they going to spread you out? How's that going to work? Okay. All right. So obviously preferred treatment. The problem I have is that he makes Dave sit outside. I just don't like that.